Imagine this. You are standing in the middle of a heated argument. Your heart is pounding. Every word feels like a weapon. Every sentence, a battle. You carefully craft your next response, determined to prove that you are right. But the other person, they are doing the exact same thing. Neither of you is listening, only waiting for a chance to strike back. And then Nietzsche steps in. He does not pick a side. He does not tell you what to say. Instead, he whispers something unsettling in your ear. You have already lost. What does he mean? You are fighting. You are defending yourself. You are standing your ground. How could that mean defeat? Because, according to Nietzsche, the moment you engage in this kind of battle, you have already surrendered your power. True strength, he argues, does not come from fighting to be right. It comes from something far more unexpected. So what is this hidden power? And why does silence often speak louder than words? Let's dive into his philosophy and uncover the silent trick that gives you real power. Most people believe that power comes from winning arguments, proving others wrong, and dominating conversations. But Nietzsche had a completely different view. He believed that power was not in words. It was in control. Why do people argue? If you've ever found yourself in a heated argument, you know how quickly things escalate. But have you ever stopped to ask why? Nietzsche would say that most arguments are not about truth, but about deeper psychological needs. Ego protection. People argue because their identity is at stake. Accepting that they are wrong feels like losing a part of themselves. The mind resists this at all costs. Power struggles. Many debates are not about facts or logic. They are battles for dominance. Who speaks last? Who controls the tone? Who makes the other back down? Social validation. Some people argue not because they believe in their point, but because they want to be seen as smart, confident, or strong by their peers. Nietzsche saw these behaviors as signs of weakness. He believed that those who react emotionally to arguments are being controlled. The moment you let someone provoke you, you have already lost. Will to power and the Übermensch. Nietzsche's famous idea of the will to power is often misunderstood. It's not about brute force. It's about the ability to impose your will on reality. This does not always require words. Sometimes, the strongest power is the ability not to react. This is where the Übermensch comes in, the ideal superior individual in Nietzsche's philosophy. The Übermensch is not emotionally reactive like the average person. He does not argue just to win or prove a point. Instead, he chooses when to engage and when to remain silent. Because power is not about talking. It's about controlling the entire interaction. Example: imagine a meeting where two people are arguing. One is loud, aggressive, trying to prove they are right. The other is calm, collected, listening more than speaking. They don't get dragged into emotional back and forths. But when they finally say something, it's well-timed, precise, and shifts the entire conversation. Who really holds the power here? Nietzsche would argue, the person who stays in control, who doesn't react emotionally, always wins in the long run. Why strategic silence is more powerful than winning arguments. Silence, when used correctly, is not weakness. It's a psychological weapon. It forces the other person to reveal more about themselves. It makes them feel uncertain, second-guess their own words. It creates tension, and tension makes people uncomfortable, giving you control. The Übermensch doesn't just stay silent in arguments. He uses silence as a tool, a pause, a moment of restraint a well-timed response that flips the conversation in his favor. This is why Nietzsche's version of power is not about fighting. It's about mastering the battlefield before the fight even begins. Silence is not just the absence of words. It's a weapon wielded by history's greatest minds to dominate battles of intellect, business, and war. Nietzsche's idea of power was not about loud arguments or winning debates. It was about influence, control, and strategic restraint. Historical examples of silent power. Let's explore 3 legendary figures who embodied this principle: Socrates, Steve Jobs, and Miyamoto Musashi. Socrates. Winning without fighting. Socrates never engaged in traditional arguments. He did not yell, attack, or force his point. Instead, he used a technique so powerful it still shapes intellectual discussions today. The Socratic method. Imagine a proud Athenian politician claiming to be the wisest man in the city. Instead of challenging him outright, Socrates simply asks, "What is wisdom?" Eager to prove his intellect, the man begins defining it. But with every question Socrates asks, the definition collapses. The politician, once so confident, now stumbles, realizing he has no true grasp of the very concept he boasted about. Socrates did not need to tell people they were wrong. He made them realize it themselves. He understood a fundamental truth. People don't accept what you tell them. They only accept what they discover on their own. Steve Jobs. The art of controlled conflict. If Socrates dominated through questioning, Steve Jobs dominated through strategic persuasion. He did not avoid arguments. He orchestrated them. His leadership at Apple was not about debating every small detail. It was about controlling the larger conversation. Jobs had a simple yet powerful principle. Don't waste energy on unnecessary fights. But when something truly matters, go all in. One famous example: the battle over the iPhone's design. Engineers wanted physical buttons. Jobs wanted a full touch screen. Instead of arguing endlessly, he led them to see his vision. He let them debate, express concerns, and eventually realize, through his guidance, that a touchscreen device was not just possible, it was inevitable. He did not tell people what to think. He made them believe it was their idea all along. Most people argue out of ego to prove they are right. But Jobs argued with a purpose: to win people over, not to prove a point. And that's the key. If your words don't move people toward action, they are just noise. Miyamoto Musashi, the silent samurai. Now, let's go beyond philosophy and business to the battlefield. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai, understood a simple truth. The best way to win a fight is to never draw your sword. Musashi won over 60 duels, but not just through physical skill. His greatest victories were psychological. He played mind games, unsettling his opponents before the battle even began. One famous duel. Musashi faced Sasaki Kojiro, a master swordsman known for deadly speed. Musashi showed up hours late, making Kojiro furious. By the time they finally faced off, Kojiro's anger blinded him, leading to mistakes and Musashi's victory. Musashi knew, if your enemy is emotional, they are already weak. Nietzsche's philosophy aligns perfectly with this. The Übermensch does not react. He controls the reactions of others. Musashi proved that silence, patience, and psychological dominance are often more powerful than brute force. Cognitive biases. Why most arguments fail. Let's break down why arguments are rarely about truth. Confirmation bias. We only look for information that supports what we already believe. Backfire effect. When challenged, we double down instead of changing our minds. Dunning-Kruger effect. The less we know, the more confident we are in our opinions. These biases make most arguments pointless. No one is actually listening. Everyone is just waiting for their turn to speak. Nietzsche's Übermensch avoids this trap. He listens, observes, and chooses whether the conversation is worth engaging in. Emotional triggers. Why we take arguments personally. Some arguments make us furious, while others barely touch us. Why? Because we don't argue over logic. We argue over identity. When someone challenges our core beliefs on politics, religion, philosophy, it feels like a personal attack. That's why debates can turn ugly so fast. People aren't just defending ideas. They feel like they themselves are under attack. The most powerful people in history never argue emotionally. If someone can make you emotional, they control you. The Übermensch does not fall for this trap. He observes, analyzes, and decides whether or not to respond. The need for validation. The true reason people argue. At the core of most arguments is ego, not truth. People don't just want to be right, they want to be seen as right. Most humans seek validation from the herd. They argue to gain approval, not insight. The Übermensch does not need validation. He creates his own truth. Think about the most influential figures in history. Did they waste time arguing with critics? Number. They focused on their vision, ignored distractions, and let their actions speak louder than words. Modern psychology confirms Nietzsche. Social psychologists have found the most powerful people in any group are not those who talk the most, but those who control the flow of conversation. They choose their words carefully, making others hang on every sentence. Calm, composed leaders are more persuasive because humans equate calmness with confidence. Nietzsche understood this deeply. True power comes from self-mastery. The Übermensch is not a slave to emotions. He does not react. He decides. And that makes him untouchable. The silent trick of real power. If someone insults you and you react, you've lost. If someone challenges you and you feel compelled to defend yourself, you've lost. If you get pulled into an argument just to prove you're right, you've lost. But if you observe, stay calm, and respond only when it serves your purpose, you have already won. Nietzsche's philosophy is not about permanent silence. It's about choosing your battles. Ask yourself, am I speaking because I want to or because I feel forced? Am I reacting emotionally or am I in control of my response? Is this argument worth my energy or am I feeding my ego? Because true power, as Nietzsche saw it, lies in the silence before the words, the pause that makes others lean in, the decision to speak only when it matters. Mastering conflict. Choosing your battles. Nietzsche's Übermensch does not argue to satisfy ego. He argues with purpose. Here's when to engage, when the argument sharpens your thinking, when it reveals deeper truths, when it pushes you or others to grow, when it shifts power in your favor. And here's when not to engage, when you are just defending your ego, when the other person is closed to change, when it's a pointless emotional battle, when your silence itself is a power move. Arguing without strategy is weakness. Arguing with precision is power. Words are currency. The power of restraint. Imagine you wake up one day and a voice tells you, you only have 100 words left in your life. Every sentence, every word, now carries weight. Would you waste them in a heated argument? Or would you choose them carefully, like a warrior sharpening his final blade before battle? This is where real power lies. Words are currency. The more you spend them carelessly, the less valuable they become. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is control. It is the art of making others question themselves without you ever convincing them. Historical examples of silent power. Think about the great minds who mastered conflict and used silence strategically. Galileo Galilei challenged centuries of dogma. He did not argue endlessly with the masses, but used evidence and timing to shift the world's understanding of the universe. Socrates questioned people to make them realize their own contradictions, never yelling or forcing his conclusions. Steve Jobs persuaded, guided, and orchestrated arguments to shape reality rather than to prove himself. Miyamoto Musashi controlled opponents psychologically, letting them defeat themselves through emotional missteps. Each of these figures understood a fundamental truth. Real power is silent, strategic, and precise. Modern application: how you can use silent power. Here's how you, as a viewer, can use these principles. Observe before reacting. Don't let emotions dictate your response. Ask questions strategically. Like Socrates, help others realize truths themselves. Speak only when it matters. Make every word count. Master your emotional triggers. Identify what provokes you and use restraint to maintain control. Use conflict as a tool. Engage in debates that strengthen your ideas or advance your vision. Remember, true thinkers, leaders, and innovators throughout history did not avoid conflict. They mastered it, shaping reality through calm, precise, and intentional action. The final challenge: silence as strength. Next time you feel the urge to argue, pause, observe, analyze. Then speak or choose to remain silent. The choice defines your power. Every word you speak should serve a purpose. Every pause should command attention, and every interaction should move you closer to influence and mastery. Nietzsche's lesson is clear. Power is silent, influence is deliberate, and mastery comes from choosing your battles wisely. If this video changed the way you think about power, influence, and conflict, subscribe for more insights from history's greatest minds. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a deep dive into philosophy, psychology, and strategies for mastering your life. Stay sharp, stay powerful. And remember, true power is silent but unstoppable.